everyone, to the Near Mint Hockey Card Podcast. It is almost playoff time. Whew! This is episode 23, which I'm dedicating to my man Scott Gomez. He is a big hockey card collector, if you didn't know that. And a couple episodes ago, I did a show where I opened a pack and I pulled a really cool Scott Gomez card, posted it on Instagram, @mentioned him, and he responded. And he actually showed me like the session that he had where he was signing those cards. Super, super cool. And obviously a legend, two-time Stanley, two-time Stanley Cup winner. And just wanted to give a shout out to Scotty Gomez, number 23. And another special guy, we've got Aaron with us today again to do this episode. So welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to be back. Yeah, that's really cool. I never heard that story about Scott Gomez, or I must have missed it on the story as well. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And like, you know, you post on Instagram and mention the guy, like you don't really expect him to respond, so it was kind of a cool little moment, guys engaging with the hockey card world.
Yeah, for sure. I think the access and the things that social media can do, some of the good things like that, I mean, it's just a little thing. He's not going to remember it, but you are,
right?
And he likely knows that too, right? And that's really cool when guys reach out. When I was growing up, and you would go downstairs to get autographs from the guys, and so this would be around I don't know, let's say the mid 80s. I was 7-8 years old. The guys were really reluctant to like sign autographs now, and you still have guys like that in the NHL for sure. I understand it, but for the most part, especially with community involvement and all the good things, like it's awesome that players now do things for the kids and they understand the impact that they have, and the role that they play isn't to just score goals. Like you got to be involved in the community and you got to do these other things. So that's awesome.
Yeah, you're totally bang on there. All right, so today I want to get into this because we got lots of playoff stuff to cover. But first, we're going to talk about the Kaprizov Clear Cut that we talked about the last 2 episodes. So that thing has been sold, so we're going to talk about that. Then, we're going to get into the playoffs, talk a little bit about the playoffs generally. Then we're each going to pick 4 cards, one from each division, that we kind of suggest that you look at, either buying or selling if you already have it. Ones that we basically think are going to go up in value as the playoffs go. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about who we think is going to go far in the playoffs. Those are probably related topics. But yeah, let's get into this Kaprizov sale.
Yeah. Let's do it. You got to insert like the cash register ka-ching after in post-production. Would be awesome.
Cha-ching, cha-ching. Yeah, so I mean, I'll go over quickly the story, but if you want the full story, we did 2 videos before this talking about myself pulling the Kaprizov out of the first box of Series 2 that I opened, and it was a crazy box, but then Kaprizov Clear Cut Young Guns, like wild. And then Aaron and I decided to get together. Aaron took a piece of it, and we've submitted it to PSA, so we've got a whole video about that whole process. Then we've got the video of the card coming back from PSA and opening it, and we got a 10. Spoiler alert, but it was crazy. We didn't know we were going to get a 10, but wow.
Yeah, it was a pretty fun it was a pretty good little adventure, I'll say that much.
Yeah, and where we left off was, we got the 10 on the show, and we talked a little bit about strategy live on the show. Like, what are we going to do? We didn't know if we get a 9 or a 10. So once we knew we had a 10, we were like, what are we going to do? And so that's kind of where we left the story. But obviously, since then, the card is no longer in my house.
Yeah. Where is it?
Yeah, so
maybe we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Or I don't know.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get into that. Let's start by talking just a little bit about the money side of things, to give like the background there. So we valued this card at about $1,000. It was, I don't know, maybe a month ago. We spent about $500 on grading and sending it to PSA, and so it was about a $1,500 investment to begin with. And that's fairly substantial. But we assumed that if we got a 10, it would be a pretty big win, and if we got a 9, a loss. But like, who knows how much? Or maybe we'd break even. Who knows, right? And there were no comps out there on eBay. This was like the first Kaprizov Clear Cut PSA 10, and there was only 3, and there still is only 3 Kaprizov Clear Cut PSA 10s, and actually no other PSA cards at all. So there's only 3. They're all 10s. And ours is the only one that I know of that is being sold. However, I imagine the other ones could have been sold privately. So yeah, I mean, why don't I hand it off to you to talk a little bit about the conversation we had and the strategy we employed, like the day after we got the PSA 10.
Yeah, so I mean, the whole thing, going back to the very beginning, I'm not going to retell the story, obviously, but I think that's sort of one of the most important things to take away is just that we had a plan right from the start. Like to me, when we were talking about making this work, I wanted to be sure that we had a plan and a strategy, that we weren't going to be holding this thing for any length of time. So the plan was to get it into PSA. We estimated the time it would take to get back. Once we got it back, we didn't know exactly how we were going to sell it. But we ultimately came up with a strategy for that. So we tried it on the open market, tried a couple things. Auction was going to be an option, but all of these things were planned. And one of the most important things to me was the speed. Like I didn't want to have this thing into playoffs, and you can make an argument for and against that. I can see that, and I can see both sides of it. But regardless, like, we were on the same page in terms of like it has to move once we get it back. So I just wanted to emphasize more the strategy part, that we had a plan in place and we executed the plan. We obviously can't have a plan to get a 10 back, but that's a good part of the story. One of the variables that we got sort of lucky with and helped all of this really come together. But it was it was fun.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I forgot what you'd asked me to. I got into my own little tangent.
No, I wanted to hear a little bit about the strategy, and that's a good reminder that, anytime you're doing something like this, it's good to have a plan in place. And with cards like this Kaprizov Clear Cut, it had just come out from Upper Deck like a month ago. So moving quickly is important with these things. And, like, maybe we could have kept it. It's not like there's PSA 10 Kaprizov Clear Cuts popping up on eBay every day, but I think it was smart for us to really move quickly. But what we didn't really know was, we have this card, what's going to be the best way to sell this to maximize profits, basically. And so I think we employed what is kind of the typical way that I go about trying to sell something that is, a big hit or something special, let's call it. And so we put it on Facebook groups. So like, we're both a part of a couple Facebook buy sell groups, and I listed it on 2 of them, and we listed it at a high price, but one that we thought, someone might pay, of 4,500 Canadian. So that would have been 3,000 profit. If we sold it, without fees on eBay through Facebook, right? That's the advantage of getting a deal done on Facebook. You don't have to pay any fees, just have to pay shipping. But, people on Facebook were skeptical of the price, let's say. There was some people not so thrilled with it. And we didn't get any serious buyers in that first, 24 hours. And really, after 24 hours on Facebook, you're not really getting much attention, right?
Well, and I think, sorry, just to touch on that with the Facebook guys who are sort of giving a hard time about the price. I mean, I don't think it's pretty rare that you can list any card of any magnitude and people sort of aren't asking questions. But I think the way that we came to the price was really reasonable.
Yeah.
So with PSA 10s, we still for that's another, we were fortunate in that way, in that the card held value over time. Like, that was, again, one of the races that we had, and one of the challenges that I foresaw was, okay, well, we're valuing this at $1,000 today. What if this card goes down to 600? And I did my own calculations on this to figure out whether I thought it was going to be a great play. So, like, what's the worst I could do? What's the best I could do? Because the one assumption I make is that the card wasn't going to go up in price from there.
Yeah.
That's about the only assumption I was pretty sure of. But again, in terms of the pricing, so at $1,000, a PSA 10, any general PSA 10 is going to have a multiple of about 4. So 4x. So we were still, it might have been, between the 800 and 1,000. There was actually, I believe, a $1,200 sale a few days earlier. So if you take the middle of 800 and 1,200, 1,000, and times it by a normal PSA multiplier of 4, that's going to give you $4,000. So for us to price it at 4,500, yeah, it's a little bit high, but it's certainly not unreasonable for a card like that. And it wasn't just like somebody going online and putting $19,964. I think our pricing was actually smart and reasonable and in line with just any other PSA 10 comp.
Yeah, I think it was reasonable too, and we discussed how we would get to the price, and it was still a bit high, but also this is a card that is like, there's only 3 of them. You can't find this every day, whereas that PSA multiplier you talk about of 4x is for like young guns that there's hundreds of, right? So a little bit of a premium on a card that you can't really just go buy any day of the week makes sense to me. But at the end of the day, we didn't find a serious buyer on Facebook. And like you said, our strategy was to move this thing within days, if not a week. So the next step was like, okay, well, Facebook isn't working. Let's go to the biggest marketplace we know, and that is eBay. And so we had a little bit of a discussion around, like, does it make sense to put it up by now or auction it? And yeah, maybe I'll let you talk a little bit about our reasoning there and why we ended up going by now.
I don't remember, but I mean, the reason why I could say or think that we did it is put it up, buy it now for a period of time, try and draw some interest. And then, I know that we had talked about auctioning it if it came to that. So, put it up, buy it now, draw some interest, see what sort of interest comes in, see if we can get some offers. It's just, a way of sort of dipping your toes in the pool, just checking the water out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, I think you nailed it. Like, I'm not looking for a deep answer on this one. It's really like kind of like similar to putting it on Facebook. You're throwing the darts at the wall and seeing if anything sticks. And like, you put it up by now, and if it doesn't sell at the price that you listed it at, then you can put it up at auction and guarantee that it'll sell, right? So yeah, we decided to go buy now, and we're going to take another day or two and see what happened. And then, yeah, the auction was the backup plan to kind of get it gone quickly and get as much as we could out of it. So yeah, we listed it on eBay at $4,497, 97 for Kaprizov's jersey number. Just a little, fun thing that I like to do sometimes with the pricing. And we had buy now, but with offers open from, I think it was 2,500 and up. So just to see, like, what are we going to get, and, I think for the first day, we didn't really see anything. There was people watching it, but there was no offers. There was no real movement. So we're kind of thinking, like, we actually had a discussion. We're like, okay, if we auction this, like, do we do 2 days, 7 days, whatever? and then we kind of like, went and did our day jobs. But then during that, I got one offer, pretty low ball. I think it was actually at my minimum of 2,500. And then I had some back and forth with that user and sent them actually a counter offer that we discussed, which was I think 3,500, which was kind of our low point, right? We were saying like 3,500, we'd make a really good profit on that, and that's kind of like where we'd be happy, right? I don't know like how we came to that exact number, and maybe we would have even gone lower. I don't know, but what were your thoughts on that?
Well, for some reason in my head, I was just thinking that like 3,200, 3,300 would be like a pretty good price for it, sort of ignoring again, ignoring exactly what I said, the fact that most PSA 10s sell for, closer to the 4X. I don't know why I would think to not put a premium on it, because it is scarce, like you said, and it's first to market, and just there's desirability with that. Somebody's going to want it. But it was just sort of a world vibe. I felt like we were going to get $3,400 for it.
Right.
So I mean, I can see that's likely why we went with 35. You were probably, I do remember having a conversation or a message exchange where you said, or we talked about 3,500, and we both sort of said, well, if we can get 3,500, I mean, I think we'd both be reasonably happy with that price.
Yeah.
After expenses and everything, we'd be over double our money on that. And even after fees, I believe.
Yep.
So that's sort of like a start point, and that's likely why we came to 3,500, I would assume.
Yeah, and I mean, to be perfectly transparent, this is the first time I've sold something of this magnitude, so we were both kind of like unsure how this would go, and it was a great learning experience. But yeah, it is like a premium card, right? So maybe we were lowballing ourselves. But anyways, I sent this offer out to this eBay buyer, and they kind of sent back. They had conversations with another seller, I guess, off of eBay of the same card, which was pretty interesting in itself. So that was kind of sitting there. But then I get this message on eBay that is basically like, so are you open to offers on this? And, immediately type back just like a quick one-liner, like not trying to sound like all desperate or whatever, but like I was like, yeah, like, submit an offer, like it's open, like we're flexible on this price. And then I don't even think I told you that, because quite quickly after, an offer came in for 4,000 flat. And I think I sent to you before the offer, before actually clicking accept, because I had to ask you, are you okay with this officially? But yeah. I mean, I think everyone listening knows what happened.
Well, I think the timing was really like, it was sort of like fairy tale too, because I believe I messaged you and I said, hey, do we have any offers, like anything going on with Kaprizov? And it was like no time later, you took a screenshot of the $4,000 offer, and I was actually super confused by it. I was like, did you like take time and like Photoshop this to mess with me?
Oh man, I'm just trolling
I was like,
you.
Someone offered $4,000. Yeah. So yeah, then you sent me the screenshot, and it was pretty easy. Pretty easy decision for both of us, I think, at that point.
Yeah, and we were happy with that price, obviously, considering we were thinking we'd have to go lower. So it was a great price to sell it at. And for those of you doing math at home, the profit was just under 2,000, with that assumed value of $1,000 on the card, right? Because we didn't actually have to buy the card, or I guess you had to buy your portion. For me, it was a bit.
I had to buy my card.
Yeah. For me, it was a bit different, right? Because I just hit this card. Yeah. And so the math that I did for myself was, I get this profit back. And what does that mean? So really what happened was my entire case of Series 2 was paid for by this card. And then I had an extra $800 on top. And that was without like all the sales from the rest of the cards. So I guess that's just like the magnitude of how big this card hit was, with the submission, obviously, that increased its value by a lot.
Yeah, so this is, easy to replicate, right? So we just need you to pull more clear cut Kaprizovs or insert the name of the new big rookie, and we'll just do it over and over, and life will be good, right?
Oh man, yeah,
It's simple.
It's
First box from the case, no problem.
yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good point to say, like, opening boxes and expecting something like this is a fool's errand. I've opened a lot of boxes, and this is like by far the best card I've pulled. I guess you could consider like a McDavid Young Gun similar in craziness, but not as rare. This is like one of 3 right now in the world.
Yeah. I'm not a box opening guy. So I would much rather take a route like this.
Yeah.
If I can find people who want to share some of the risk and hedge a little bit, I would love to do that. But it was it was fun.
Yeah, and I wanted to wrap this conversation with kind of the feel good moment for me with selling this card, because I was having a conversation with the person that actually bought this card, asking them, if there's other cards that they like. I always like to throw in like a little extra something for people that buy something big, just some freebies. And we were discussing shipping a little bit. We shipped it FedEx securely. It got there in a week. It was great. But yeah, this eBay buyer messaged me back when I was asking about Kaprizov, and he's like, "Yeah, Kaprizov is a huge deal up here. This card isn't going anywhere up here, being Minnesota." So just like, I'm so happy it went to a huge Wild fan who collects Kaprizov, and he's gonna have this sweet card in his collection, hopefully displayed somewhere beautifully for years to come.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I even called that in the first episode, or in the first part, is I had a good idea, or I thought, it's obviously logical that the person who bought it was going to be a Minnesota fan or a Kaprizov fan. I didn't think it was going to be someone trying to make, pay that dollar for an investment card at that price point. Could have happened, but exactly. So this guy, I'm sure, is very happy with that card, and they're happy, we're happy, and win-win, and that's all you can hope for, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I just love that, and I got a really excited message when it showed up at his door, and he opened it, and like, everyone that is part of this hobby, whether you're investing or a collector, knows that feeling of opening mail when you get a really sick card. Whether you're keeping it for a month, a year, or forever, like, it is just so great to open something super cool, and that's one of the most beautiful cards that I've ever had in my hands.
Yeah, I got a picture of it on my Instagram, so I will never hold that card. But yeah, the picture is good enough. The Instagram feed, when I've already done it, where I scroll back to the start of when I first started collecting / investing again, and it's funny to see sort of your journey and how things go, and how you level up, and yeah, it'll be there, and it's part of my adventure, and I think I think we did well. I think we executed the plan that we had, and did all we could, and it it worked out. And like I said on one of my videos a few videos back, at the end of the day, you have to take some risks. Like for me, I bought a portion of the card, and there's risk to that, but I calculated it out. I did the quick math. If I lost some money, it wasn't going to be a large amount of money. Like some money was coming back to me, regardless of what we sold it at. So I have to put up the capital and then take the risk. But I felt like my downside was pretty limited, and my upside was, there was more of an upside than a downside. So hence why I made the decision. And then if I was on the fence at all, this content and knowing that it would just be fun and the same thing, a learning lesson, turned out to be a great experience. But you got to take some risks, get out there and do something. I mean, I remember when I asked you, I'm like, hey Ryan, would you be interested in selling a piece of that? And you're like, well, what does that even mean? Like, I'm an ex-poker player. I played a lot of poker, and what you do in poker is you buy pieces of your friends, right? So if me and you were playing in a poker tournament, let's say it was $100, I might say, can I buy a piece of you? So I'll buy a quarter. That means that I give you $25 of that $100, and if you win any money, I get 25% of that. Anyways, it's really common in the poker world, and perhaps not so common in cards, but yeah, I took a chance and it worked out, and I think it was just super fun. And that's what it's about, right?
Yeah, it's definitely, for me, like, the experience is a huge part of it. Both from like a learning experience and having a good time. Having these discussions obviously is very valuable, and hopefully other people can take little nuggets from the experience that we had. I don't know whether this is like a repeatable experience yet. I think that it's possible that you could take this as like a strategy, buying cards like clear cuts and trying to kind of express grade them. But I think, at this point, this is a one-off. So we'd have to kind of test this with more cards to see if this is a repeatable kind of strategy. But, I think that there are opportunities in doing things like this that aren't the standard buy a Young Guns at a price and then sell it at the next price.
Yeah, I think it's important to be thinking outside the box all the time and just think about other opportunities that are out there. When I first started into the hobby and started buying, like, I was thinking, okay, well, I'm going to buy this card for $20 and hopefully I can sell it for 25. And then, you learn, and, I learn about grading, and I'm like, well, how does grading work? Anyways, and these things just evolve, and there's always opportunities. It's what you want to make of them. And, that's my favorite part of this, is just growing my collection and growing, the value of them. But in general, all of this, the strategy behind it, calculating it out, spreadsheets, all the, some of that people don't like, but that's what I enjoy, is just growing and doing these things.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, like, we're going to get into our playoff picks here, but I think this is a natural point to say, if you want to come talk about this or any other strategy, there is a Near Mint Discord where the two of us hang out, and you can come ask questions, discuss things, list your cards, anything hockey card world related. And the reason I bring this up is, yourself, you're in there answering some really great questions, providing great insights, talking about strategy, like as much or more than I am, as well as lots of other smart people. So yeah, I mean, it's just a really great community of really smart minds, and we're going to be better together than we are just like soloing it.
Yeah, it's fun bouncing ideas off each other. You have, like we said before, you have all different kinds of guys in there. You have some vintage guys, you have collectors, you have investors, you have flippers, you got some breakers. Like there's everything in there. You have people new, people old. It's just fun, and yeah, definitely get in there and come and chat, and we'd love to have you. It's a good group of individuals in there, and growing, and that's awesome to see. So it's fun. Again, yeah. More fun. There's a theme here. Fun. Yeah,
I just spun up today a playoffs channel to talk all about the playoffs, because spoiler alert, they're happening on Saturday. Oh my God. We got this episode
Yeah.
in like just in time. It's Wednesday, by the way, for anyone watching this in the future. Yeah, they're going to start with the Caps and Bruins series this Saturday while there's still regular season games to be played. So we gotta get rolling. Like we gotta make our picks. We gotta look at the cards. Playoffs are starting.
Yeah, absolutely. Super exciting. I mean, I don't even know where to go with this. I could go anywhere with this. I'm so excited. Like, there's going to be some great matchups.
Yeah.
Outside of the cards, just the playoffs themselves. It looks like there's going to be some great series. There always are. But yeah, when they announced yesterday that I believe it was yesterday that they'd scheduled that game, or perhaps it was the day before. Anyways, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, yeah, Saturday. Saturday is playoffs. I thought I had another week or so.
Yeah.
But I'm stoked.
Yeah. I'm so excited. Like playoff hockey is the time of year that I just love. Like especially the first round where you get to watch so many games and so many great matchups. And this year with the new divisions, like it's kind of forced a couple things that we haven't seen, like the all Florida matchup, the Toronto against Montreal that we haven't seen since the 70s. Like it's just going to be so good.
It is. It's going to be great.
So I know I joined the hockey card world last year, kind of mid playoffs, and I think you were around the same time. Was there anything last year that, as a pretty fresh face to the hockey card scene, that you learned and took away from that experience, kind of jumping into it during the playoffs?
Well, yeah, when I started, it was, well, I know the first card I bought was on September 12th, I remember. But I believe that was no, September 12th, because I just looked at this the other day. September 12th must have been like the Stanley Cup final when I bought the first card. Anywho, I do remember. I mean, Braden Point at that time was a big card last year with him going into the finals. Miro Heiskanen was the big one over in Dallas, along with probably Denis Gurianov was getting a lot of talk. So I mean, I think you could take a look at that and sort of see the commonality with age. Like I don't think people were looking for, or I shouldn't say that, but last year anyways, the eyes weren't on the veterans so much. People were looking for the young guys to really step up and make things happen. And I don't expect much different this year.
Yeah.
But again, I'm excited to see what happens. My philosophy coming into this, before we get into the picks, I guess I'll start by saying is, I do have some picks. I've made some purchases on ComC, relatively small ones where I've bought some inexpensive cards, and bought a volume of them. But this year for me was more about exactly like watching and seeing what happens with the market and see who takes off and who's getting the attention on what teams. Because I'm honestly, I don't know. Like, is it just Braden Point again? Like the same thing just happens? And I'll finish my thought off by just saying I did actually just release a video on check me out on YouTube, by the way, if you haven't already. Sick plug. I'll just throw that in. Anyways, I just released a video this week talking about the cycle of hockey cards going from regular season, into playoffs, where you see a player start rising, and obviously as they go into the playoffs, get deeper into the playoffs, as you would expect, that card continues to increase in price, and after the Stanley Cup is awarded, everyone drops off. That includes Stanley Cup winners, and then they hit sort of a plateau bottom over the summer, or over the off season last year, because it wasn't summertime last year, but over the off season they hit a bottom, and then you see, as we come up to regular season again, you see the hype building, and people are making their picks and doing that, and you really see prices start to come up again. So longevity in the playoffs looks to be something that you're going to want. And yeah, I'm excited to watch how it plays out this year, and see whose card price goes up, and who doesn't will may actually surprise me a little bit more. I'm looking forward to seeing both sides of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's definitely some guys that you think might go up that just kind of don't. Um, and yeah, like, so I bought a lot of Oilers cards probably a month ago that I kind of have my finger on the trigger to unload in the playoffs. And I've kind of been saving a bunch of cards that I didn't want to list until the playoffs because, as you know, like, a guy can pop off like Guryanov did last year, or Kubalik did last year, and their price just kind of skyrockets. So it's a very opportunistic time. But maybe I'm a little different in that the last week, which admittedly is maybe a bit late, I've been buying a few cards of players that I think can be successful in the playoffs and will kind of have a lot of hype going on, and should be like relatively quick returns. But all that, I think we're going to dig deeper as we make our picks and critique each other. But what we're going to do is we're going to make one pick from each division, one player. And probably for the sake of argument, we're going to use Young Guns prices in Canadian so we can kind of judge like value. So that's kind of what we're going to use as a baseline. However, you know, if we say buy McDavid, for example, you know, you don't have to buy his Young Guns. You can go at a cheaper card, or a crazier card if that's your cup of tea. Get like a Future Watch auto or something. But yeah, I think the focus should be on the players, kind of. We just have to use something as a benchmark. And the other thing I'll say before we get started is the prices are changing like hourly or daily. So like I have some prices here, but you know, if you watch this tomorrow, because people are getting so hot and heavy about the playoffs, they're going to be rising kind of constantly from this point forward.
Yeah, I took all of my prices off of ComC, which I'm using primarily right now, and I'll just convert them like roughly in my head to Canadian dollars since, yeah, that's the pricing we're going to use. But pricing is changing, and not just for guys going into the playoffs, just in general. I think there's a little bit more attention. I think there's more people thinking about this, thinking about their playoff plays. Over the season, you know, the season is just the season. So a lot of teams knew a while ago that their team was going to get in. Other people knew that their team was, you know, done for the year a while ago. And then there's a few teams, very, very few teams that were sort of in the middle that were actually fighting for a spot. Like we didn't see a heck of a lot of playoff fighting, which is unfortunate, but that's the way it goes, and it's a short season, and that's okay. But the prices are changing rapidly, so it feels to me like there's just more volume and attention, and that also may have to do with EPAC. You know, just released season 2 last week as well, so perhaps that's why there's more people on ComC. But it seems really busy there, and prices are really changing, literally hourly.
Yeah,
if not quicker.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I find even as a fan, in the last 2 to 4 weeks, maybe even a bit longer in a normal season, you're kind of like, you're not watching as much hockey, you're not as stoked, but the like week before the playoffs start, you really start like ramping up again. You know, you're getting excited if your team's going to be in it. If your team's not going to be in it, you're like making picks or whatever it is. You know, your fantasy hockey season ends and you're getting excited about the playoffs again. And I think a lot of people kind of come back. And so more attention on the sport means more cards being listed, more cards being bought, higher prices. It's this whole hobby is about hype, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you. Let's get into it though.
Let's do it.
Who's going first?
So we're going to start with the Central Division, which is Carolina, Florida, Tampa Bay, and Nashville. And since you're the guest, I'll give you the first selection in this draft, if you want to call it that.
in this draft. So, I mean, I'll start by saying, first of all, this division is going to be really fun as well. You know, Nashville's going in as the 4th seed. They're coming in 7-2-1. So this, you know, there's no cakewalks for anyone here. That being Carolina, who's playing them in the first round, and then we got to Florida versus Tampa Bay, the 2 and 3 seeds going against each other. You know, Florida has been really surprising. They lost Aaron Ekblad, but I'm still, I like them. I like them as a team, and I'd like to see them be able to push through. I don't know, but having said that, I'll get to my pick. I'm just saying it's going to be a great division. These games are going to be fun, but my pick is going to be from the Carolina Hurricanes. And I'm going to stick with sort of what I saw last year in the younger player hype and people going with that. And I know the people who know me think that I'm going to say Andrei Svechnikov because I am an Andrei Svechnikov guy. And I do have Andrei Svechnikov cards here that will be wrapped up and ready to go. But I'm not. I'm going to go with the younger talent, and I'm going to go with Martin Necas at $25. Okay, if Carolina is going to roll through, they're going to have 2 tough rounds. And if they're going to roll through, they're going to need depth past Aho and Svechnikov. And Necas is that next guy. You got Trocheck in there. That's why they're good this year, is because they have guys past Aho and Svechnikov. So I'm thinking that the market is really going to latch on to Martin Necas. If he pops off with, a Hattie and, Aho has 2 assists, Svech has 1 or whatever on the power play, and Necas is the beneficiary, like that's a card that will be going up. So on ComC, that card was $25 US. So I'm not absolutely in love with that price. That would be the equivalent of about $31 Canadian. But having said that, that card can easily Braden Point to $60+ if he does go off.
Yeah.
And he's also an individual. See, I see 2 things. There's 2 ways to do it. He can put up a big night. We'll see the card pop. And the other thing is longevity in the playoffs.
Yep.
And I think he's sort of got capability of both. So even if they get bounced in the first round, if he comes out in game 2 and puts up, like I said, a 4-point game or something, there's going to be a really small selling window there. But I also think that Carolina can go deep, so he's got a couple things going for him. So Martin Necas, my number 1 pick.
Yeah, and I like that pick. I actually was looking at him, and recent sales anywhere from 20 to 40 Canadian. So some people got in there with some steals in the last few days on a young talent in Carolina, which I agree with you. I have Carolina going to not the semis. Yes. Sorry, I have Carolina going to the Cup. I was looking at my bracket going no, that's not the semis, that's the final. Because I just believe in them this year. They're really deep. They've got a good team. Last year they had some early success, and I find teams that win the Cup tend to have to go through a year where they are a favorite but they don't do it, kind of like Tampa Bay. And so, yeah, I was actually looking at the same team, and when you started talking, I thought you were going to pick my guy. So close call. But yeah, I mean, for your pick there, I think he's more likely to have a big night, and that's going to be your time. I still think he could have a great playoffs overall, and they go deep. But my guy, I would say, is maybe a little bit safer. A little bit more of a known talent, and you mentioned him. It is Sebi Aho, who, it's not that easy to find a deal on right now, but his price point is still, when you look at him compared to Svechnikov, for example, Svechnikov is 3 times more expensive than Aho. I mean, depending what price, but Aho you can get between 35, 50, maybe a little over 50 Canadian. And I just think last year he was incredible. He was destroying the playoffs. And that, when you look at Young Guns prices, is still really low for a star in the league. And given that I have these guys going to the Cup final, seems like a smart play to me.
Yeah, I mean, how do you go wrong with Aho? He gets a lot of the attention too. He's a great player. It's just the depth, absolutely. Carolina's got it all going. Last year they relied a lot on Teravainen, Aho, and Svech sort of bulking it up in one line and hoping that they get enough done to win hockey games. And this year they've put together three pretty good lines, and then have a good fourth depth line as well. So goaltending maybe a question over there. But they have, how do you even say the backup's name anyways? I was actually
Oh,
looking at one of his cards.
Nedeljkovic.
Nedeljkovic?
I believe it's Nedeljkovic, but it's a tough one. But yeah, he's been a guy that I've had my eye on for a while as like a guy that could pop off, and he's arrived.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to get the start over Mrazek.
No.
I believe they'll be playing Mrazek, but I mean, they got a good backup there. If they get bombed in game one, who knows? I'll tell you what though, if Mrazek gets bombed in game one and Nedeljkovic gets in the net, I will own some of those young guns.
Yeah.
Okay, I will be very quickly going and grabbing some of those. I like Aho, and I think that's a great pick as well.
So do you have Carolina coming out of that division, or did you go with Carolina just because, the Tampa players have gotten their hype?
I haven't actually put together a pool. I don't know who I have coming out of this division. I honestly find it really tough this year. Usually I'm really confident and I can come up with reasons why I think Team X will beat and do that. There's some really good matchups this year.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to really sit down and focus on it. So having said that, I do think Carolina has a very good shot at winning the division. I think Tampa Bay is a little bit less threatening than they were last year, and even through they just got bombed by Nashville yesterday, 5-0. So I think Carolina has a shot, and yes, I wouldn't have gone with a Nashville player just because I think they're more speculative, but I go with a Carolina player because I certainly think that they have a really good shot at the division.
Love it. Okay, we're going to move on to the East Division next, which is Pittsburgh versus the Islanders, which is going to be a great series, and then Washington versus Boston. Chara in the matchup against his old team. And this division I found to be very difficult to choose winners. I found it very difficult to choose a player. I think this is the one that I'm actually least excited about any card in this entire division, that like compared to the other divisions. So I don't know. This was a really tough one for me. There's definitely some opportunity there, but it was harder. And so, this is my player, but I probably would pick any of the other three over this guy. The other three division players that I'm going to make. So basically, I was looking at matchups, and I think that New York, the Islanders, have a really strong team. They've got more depth than last year, which is wild. They added Zajac and Palmieri at the deadline-ish, and that's basically a whole line. And they've got one of the best coaches in the league. It's just a really well put together team, and so I think they're going to beat a Pittsburgh team that is still Pittsburgh with Crosby and Malkin, but isn't the same team they were. And I think that they can beat Boston or Washington too. But like I said, this is a tough one for me. But with all that said, I was looking at the Islanders players, and, Barzal is an obvious choice. And I do think that he's a good buy. His value should go up if what I'm saying happens. But I don't think it's going to go up as much as this player, because Barzal is already at like 60 to 80, maybe even more Canadian. So like maybe he'll double. But I think there's an opportunity in a little guy called Beauvillier, who last year in the playoffs was amazing, plays top minutes, and you can get his young guns for like $10. And if he goes off similar to what you were talking about, has a great game, or, like last year has a great playoffs, there's no way he's going to cost $10 anymore.
Oh, Anthony Beauvillier, great pick. I picked up a couple of Beauvilliers at the start of the season. To be honest, I'm not super familiar with him. He's playing with. It looks like he's lined up with Nelson and Bailey on the second line. I was actually contemplating. Well, I'm with you. I had a very tough time with this division. It was to the point where I was trying to do my picks this afternoon, and I had just spent too much time. I had gone up and down the rosters, and I just didn't know where to go. I was gonna actually default or go to Wallstrom on the Islanders, who I think is a reasonable play. But there were just a couple things I didn't like. His production's been down. He's got 4 points in the last few games. I guess this is sort of an honorable mention in a roundabout way. Yeah, he's got 4 points in his last 5 games played. He was a goal scorer, but he's had a hard time doing it since he left the U18 United States, since he left their development program. But I don't know. This division, any team who wins this division is capable, not, sorry. I think any team in this division is capable of winning the Stanley Cup. It would not surprise me if you said the Islanders, the number 4 seed, won the Stanley Cup, nor the Boston Bruins, nor the Washington Capitals, nor the Pittsburgh Penguins. Pittsburgh's been there before. Washington was just there. Boston's always there. This is going to be a bloodbath. And that Pittsburgh Islanders series, Pittsburgh is the highest scoring team in the league. Are the Islanders going to be able to stop them? Pittsburgh won 4 of the 8 games that they played against each other. 6 of the 8 games, 4 of them in regulation. The other 2 were either overtime or shootout, I guess. But that series is going to be good. I was lost on this. I'm right there with you. So when you said that, it was sort of funny. I was in the same boat.
Okay, so why don't you tell me who do you think is going to win that division if you have to make a pick, and then who's your guy?
My bias is gonna kick in here, and I'm gonna cheer for Sid. And they're at the top of the division. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But I also have an Ovi Young Guns PSA 10 here that I want to sell. So I would love to see Washington win the division. So I have a couple of different things going on. I think Pittsburgh's going to do it. I have zero confidence when I say that. This division, literally, and these matchups, I just think are going to be awesome. But I'll get to my pick without talking about this division over and over. If Washington does win, which will help my Alexander Ovechkin card, I think they're going to need some help in net, and it's a funny pick because I'm always talking about how I'm not a goalie guy. I don't buy goalies. I don't believe in goalies. From a young gun perspective, from an investment perspective, not that I don't like goalies. I played in that like my whole life through junior. Like I love goalies. But there's a million reasons. I'm sure we've talked about it before. But so the guys from the Discord are laughing at me because they're like, Aaron Lapper is gonna pick a goalie, and I am. I'm gonna go with Vitek Vanacek. If Washington is gonna have a shot in this division to get through, they're gonna need goaltending, and Vanacek is at a merely $7 US. So let's call that $9 Canadian. You can grab this guy for, and that's a card. Again, I wouldn't want to be holding it past the playoffs, and if they get bounced the first round, the card's likely just going to stay right there. It's going to do absolutely nothing. But if they can get to the semifinals, I don't see any reason why this $10 Canadian card wouldn't be, double that. He's going to have to do something to help them out. So Vitek Vanacek, 2.69 goals against, 908 save percentage. He's won 3 of his last 4. He got pulled the game before that. He got bombed for 5 goals, but I think they're going to need it. So I'm going with Vanacek.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. And Washington has ridden goalies to cups in the past with Holtby there. Grubauer played good for them. So that's interesting. I thought you were going to say Anthony Mantha, who was kind of my runner-up, actually, because I think he kind of lost a lot of traction playing in Detroit, and he's a guy that I could see really popping off for them. And also, they're going to need more than Ovi to just score goals. So that's kind of, I guess, my honorable mention in this division.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, all these things, I'm just excited to watch it because I have no idea what's going to happen. I hope Ovi scores a bunch of goals. I hope I sell my Ovechkin. I hope Vanacek's card goes up, and yeah, it's going to be a blast.
Yeah, I like that as like a safe move too, because his card is still relatively new, right? It came out this year. And so, like, it's not going to drop in value, really. Like, there's still people that are interested generally. Yeah, like it.
Yeah, it's a price point everyone can afford, right? Now, I'm certainly not saying go and buy it because I said that, but if it makes you think of something and you're like, yeah, maybe that's a good price and it could go up, I think it's an entry point that everyone can afford. And if you want to buy a Vanacek or two, then it's $9. So. And if you do it on ComC, you don't have to pay that shipping either. I mean, God, sometimes it's $4 shipping on eBay. You buy it on ComC, it's $7 US, no shipping, and flip it there, and life is good.
Yeah, that's an interesting point too. Just quick flips on ComC if you don't want to be waiting, because there is a bit of an issue in playoffs. If you're buying cards in the next few days or even like a week into playoffs, like you got to wait for them to come, and your team could get bounced in that time, or like anything could happen. So. Yeah, that's a good point if you're just trying to do little quick flips. And to your point about giving advice to people, I hope that you like our picks, but I think more important is the reason we make them. So if you think that we're out to lunch and you think Boston is going to smoke this division, like use that in your decision making and go out and get like, I don't know, Jake DeBrusk or Pasternak if you can afford them, or like. You don't have to follow our picks exactly, but the strategy, I think, is what's really important.
Yeah, for sure. What's next?
What's next is the West Division, and I have a feeling I know your bias in this division because it includes Vegas playing St. Louis and Colorado playing Minnesota. I think that could still change, right? Or is it finalized?
No, that can change. If Colorado wins their last two games against LA, then they will win the division, and that would make it a Colorado versus St. Louis and a Vegas versus Minnesota. But as it sits right now, it is Vegas versus St. Louis and Colorado versus Minnesota.
Okay, so we'll go with that because it's the most likely scenario, and I don't think a ton changes if those matchups swap. Like, I don't think there's an easy out in this division for either of those top teams. The top teams being Colorado and Vegas. I hope people are on board with me there. They've been favorites since before the season started. But yeah, this is a really interesting division for me. It's an exciting one. I really like Vegas as a complete team, and Colorado is just so exciting, and they have such good talents, and I think either of them could win this division personally. Like, I fully expect them to both get through the first round and then have one of the ultimate matchups in playoff history, which it's a little sad that it has to happen in the second round, but hey, you got to get through the good teams to win in the playoffs, so let's see it happen. I really, like, again, like, this was a tough one for me. Like, I don't know who will win between those two, assuming that they do get there. But when I look at investing in cards and I look at Vegas, I don't like to buy guys that like aren't homegrown talents kind of thing. So on Vegas, there's very few guys that are in Vegas jerseys on their Young Guns card because their team came from everywhere else, right? As much as I love Mark Stone, like, he's got a Senators jersey on. It's not as cool. There's a lot more talents in Colorado that have been there forever. And I mean, that's why they're such a good team. They've found these talents and just kept them. And I, like, before I make my pick, I think you could look at Colorado and choose any of their stars and you'd be just fine. there's so many good picks on that team. Like, definitely go buy a Colorado card is kind of my first advice. But I went a little bit of a different direction here, and I should preface this by saying I've also bought McKinnon and Rantanen and Colorado cards recently. So, don't let this sway your decision completely. But I went towards Vegas here, and I picked Mr. Tuck on Vegas because I think there's opportunity there. His card is still like pretty cheap, kind of similar to my last pick. His card you can pick up as low as $5. I saw it sell recently, but probably more realistically in the like $15 neighborhood. And he's going to be their depth scoring. He's definitely an electric guy. I think he's a playoff type player that if they go deep, he's going to be key. And he's going to probably have a 2-goal, 3-goal night. And $10 to $15 is just not where his card is going to be if that happens.
Yeah, that's not a pick I would have made. I think, I think it's great that different people have different opinions. And it'll be interesting. I wouldn't have thought, I thought I had you pegged for most of this and had a good idea of who you would get on and not be on. Alex Tuck is an interesting one. I mean, he's got 32 points, 54 games, got 18 goals.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with 18 goals in a short season. Looking at Alex Tuck, I would probably want him to get a Hattie, and I'd be listing pretty quick. But Vegas is dangerous. This division is another one. Just going to be two great matchups. I think Minnesota isn't getting enough credit, and everyone knows I'm a Colorado fan, but Minnesota's not getting any credit, and I don't think that that's fair at all. But it's just going to be another great division with great games. I mean, having said that, I am a Colorado fan. I'm not going to take someone who's not from Colorado. And now you make me feel bad about my pick because you're right. It's like go and grab an Avs guy. But I mean, I'm just buying more Mikko. I mean,
yeah.
Last year when Colorado made it to the semifinal and played Dallas was the first time that the world really got a look at Nathan MacKinnon, because there were only 2 games going, and each team, you have your own night, right? So the whole world is watching you. And Nathan MacKinnon got that exposure last year, and people really got an understanding for how good Nathan MacKinnon was. And I still don't think that people recognize Mikko enough. And if Colorado is going to make a cup run and maybe they win the Stanley Cup, the thing is really hard to win, so I'm always reluctant.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they have a shot. Let's be honest. They have a legit shot. Mikko is going to be a huge part of that. It's obviously, Mikko, Gabe, and Nate accounted for 75 points combined, okay? And that's their line when they're together on their line. That's not their total points that they have. Does that make sense?
Like their line scored 75 goals.
No, 75 points combined. So that's goals and assists just when they're together at even strength.
Gotcha.
So if you so if you put someone else in there, if Nazem Kadri was on the ice, it doesn't go towards Nate and Anyways, the only other team to score above 50 points from a line was. Do you want to take a shot at this? Because I feel like you'll get it.
So like the Oilers have scored so many points that's what I would like initially think, but their lines are like never together. So like I don't know if that would really be it. My mind just goes to the Pasta Marchand Bergeron line because it's just elite.
Exactly. They tied. So they Mikko, Nate, and Gabe had 75 points combined, and then the Pasternak, Marchand, Bergeron. It's Bergeron, right?
Yep.
Bergeron's the third on there?
Yeah.
They were tied at 75, and they were the only 2 lines in the NHL above 50 points, and they each had 75 combined.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, no, I like before you move on, like I like to think that everyone thinks those are the 2 best lines in hockey. And I think like I'd throw my hat in there that's saying the 3 best lines in hockey are those 2 lines, and then McDavid and whoever else.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing, though. These guys have longevity, and
Yeah.
they actually stay together as a line. And there's nothing wrong with having a player like Connor McDavid. That exactly. I can go and skate with him, and I'm probably going to put up some apples, or maybe he just banks it off my stick into the net or something. But yeah, so I'm going with Mikko Rantanen. He was at, he's at $51. I think people are going to get a better look at him this year if they can move forward and get into the semifinal. The guy's just getting better and better and better, and him and Nate just have more chemistry, and Gabe's having a breakthrough year. Landeskog isn't probably more of a sleeper pick. It's actually a hard card to find as well, those Avs top guys,
Yeah.
Landy specifically, but I'm an Avs fan. I'm going to take an Av. I hope you buy a Mikko. I hope they win the cup and you make a bunch of money.
Yeah, I actually have a Landeskog. It was one of the first guys that I bought because I thought it was so crazy underpriced. But I've also been smashing buy on Rantanen recently, and I've already had a bunch of them graded and raw because like his price used to be insane. Like nobody understood how good this guy was, and it's I compare it to Draisaitl, except Draisaitl has found the fame now. But previously, no one understood how good he was, and I think the same thing is going on with Rantanen. He is just so good and being overshadowed a little bit by McKinnon. But in the playoffs, people are going to realize this guy is a monster. He's huge, and he's talented, and I think that's an excellent pick. It's actually my runner-up pick, and I've been buying his cards, and I actually just acquired a PSA 10 Future Watch Auto Mikko Rantanen.
Did you really?
I sure did.
Wow. I do have a Future Watch Auto Mikko Rantanen. It will not get a 10. So I will be getting one of those, and I'll sell this off to pay for a piece of that. But I'll be getting one of those. That's awesome. You got one though.
Yeah, it was actually one of the things that I purchased with our Kaprizov profits.
Okay.
Because I had to put that back in somewhere. But yeah, it is a great card, and yeah, I love that pick.
So would that be a piece that you would move if it saw a dramatic increase in the playoffs, or was that more a card you were going to hold? What was the plan in buying that? I don't know if you said.
I think I will move it if I see the right price, or maybe I'll list it if they have success at a price that I'd be happy with. But I also think that if they go on and do well and I keep it till next year, it's a really low pop. I don't want to say the number because I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's like 20 or something. Like there's not very many of them, so it's kind of a good card to hold or flip if you want to use that word.
Yeah, and it's a few years old now. It's going to be harder and harder to find in good condition. So it's like either it's a 10 or it's not. I mean, I guess some people have these buried in boxes still, but yeah, I'm gonna have one of those. I don't yet.
Well, maybe it'll come from me. You never know.
Hey, maybe. I won't say that's not happening for sure.
That's awesome. Okay, we've saved the Canadian division for last. The North Division, if you want to call it that. It's got a classic matchup of Toronto versus Montreal, which we have not seen in, I think it's like over 40 years. So that is going to be really exciting. And I think Montreal has put together a deeper team than people give them credit for, although they are dealing with some injuries. I still have Toronto beating them, but I think they'll put up a fight. And then we've got Edmonton against Winnipeg, which I think Edmonton matches up very well against them, but I don't want to discredit Winnipeg. They've got some talent there, and that's going to be a really fun series to watch no matter what happens.
Yeah, I'm here in Winnipeg. I watched the game last night. They looked better last night, but up until that point, like, these guys are in trouble. If you would have asked me 3 weeks ago, yeah, we had the whole city here. I have all my friends talking about Winnipeg, and there were no complaints. Everything was going great. They were complaining. Well, now they're really complaining because the Jets are having a tough time. They're banged up a little bit. Ehlers is out. Hellebuck has looked like anyone but Hellebuck. And the Jets rely on that. They've relied on it for about 4 years now, but Hellebuck's bailed them out. And for only one of those years, he got a Vezina. He would be a Vezina candidate this year if I think the North didn't get off to that crazy start, which likely dragged his numbers a little bit. But that's going to be a good series, and we'll see. Having said that, I mean, I'll lead right into my pick. I don't know if I'm overstepping you here, but I'm still going to stick with the Jets. I think that the Jets can get it together, maybe. I don't know, but I'm going with Kyle Connor. I mean, my boy, he's at $31. He scored. Did he have 1 or 2 last night? Anyways, he has a 2-game goal streak going again because he'd gone dry for a little bit, but the guy scores goals. He's got 24 goals this year, 24 assists, 48 points in 55 games. If Winnipeg's gonna have a shot, Kyle Connor's gonna have to do it. You're gonna need Connor doing it. You're gonna need Wheeler helping out. Wheeler had a great game last night, and then Scheif's has been the guy this year. I called Connor at the start of the year to lead goals, to lead assists, and to lead points, obviously. And Scheif's was the guy. And he's going to need to step up his game even more if Winnipeg's going to have any sort of shot. But Kyle Connor, I'd be careful with that pick, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's never a bad idea to go with a goal scorer. And I think a lot of people have been talking about Kyle Connor as a card to buy because he has been undervalued as a very talented player that can put up 30, 40 goals in a season, no problem. I think the thing with this division is Winnipeg has the least hype as far as the card world goes. So, even if they win this division, I kind of see the multiplication factor being less with guys on Winnipeg. But that's not to say that that it is a bad pick. I think it's still good. And there were so many great picks in this division. Honestly, if you want to pick a division to focus on and don't go anywhere else, this is not a bad one to start because you've got the Maple Leafs, who look like a great team, and you know how much people love them. You've got the Habs, where people go crazy, and if a guy has a good night, or God forbid they upset the Maple Leafs, those cards are going to go nuts. And then you've got my boys in Edmonton, and they're just money over there. You can't go wrong with Edmonton cards, and I do believe in them. I think they match up well against all these teams, actually. And so I'm sticking with my boys, kind of like you stuck with your boys. And a player that I've been talking about for a while that has yet to catch fire, both on the ice and in the card world. But I really think that he could be a guy that has some big nights for the Oilers, provides that depth scoring they're going to need if they win. And that is going to be my man, Kyler Yamamoto. And
Saw it coming.
Yeah, it's not that big a surprise. His cards are still at about $20, his Young Guns, and that's not gonna stay if he is a main reason that they're winning games. And I just as much as Draisaitl and McDavid are going to carry them, and I mean, having those guys to sell is obviously a great thing, but they need that depth scoring. They need that guy to come in and score from the second or third line that isn't expected to put up a point or two a game. And he also is kind of the backup option on their power play if other things aren't going well. So I kind of like that he might see some time there. Yama's my guy. And it was basically 50-50 between him and Willie Nylander for me, to be honest.
I was looking at Nylander, and I thought you might too. I had you pretty pegged, other than Tuck. You got Tuck over on me, but yeah, I like Yamamoto as well. I think it lines up with last year too. Like a lot of the attention still is gonna be or perhaps more of the upside is going to be on the younger rookies who, haven't established themselves yet. So if Yama's getting a point per game or he has a 3-point night, like that card is going to have a lot more room to move than if McDavid has a 3-point night. I don't think his card's going to move a heck of a lot. It'll move as they progress through the playoffs.
Yeah.
But, in Yama, you'll see that spike right as it's happening.
For sure.
You'll see that spike in the market instantly. So I really like that. And that is also one of the reasons where I talked earlier, there's a couple ways to sort of grow the value, and that's like longevity in the playoffs. So the further you go, the higher your card price will hopefully go with you. And the other reason I'm still defending my Connor pick is just because I think Connor is capable of, easily a 2, 3, 4 goal night.
Yeah.
And if they can light up the Oilers in game 1 and, Connor has a Hattie and maybe an apple with it, we'll see what happens to that card. But he's capable of that. So more so than I think that Winnipeg's going to win the Stanley Cup, because that's certainly not what I'm saying. They're going to have a tough time getting through Edmonton. I'm not even going to favorite them in that series. But, there's that upside. But I definitely love your pick. And, we're going to see what Yama does in the playoffs. I saw that he missed the game today, right? He has some undisclosed something going on.
Yeah, and like it's hard to say with like no like meaningful games left if like they just want to rest him because he's got like a bone bruise or something like that, or if something real is going on. But yeah, I did want to talk about Nylander a little bit because I actually bought a few of his cards today. He's a guy that like you can get his card for 50, 60 Canadian, which is a little higher than some. But he's on the Maple Leafs, where cards are like Marner is like $300 and some, and he is like a pure goal scorer. So it's not crazy to say that like he'd get 10 to 15 goals in the playoffs and like literally light it up. And if you're doing that on the Maple Leafs and they're winning series, like $50 is way too low for your young guns.
Yeah, I actually had a look at William Nylander myself. The only reason that I didn't truly consider him was just because of price point, and I thought it was a little bit much. And then when you have a young gun at that price, you obviously wonder how much upside there is. It was sort of the same issue I had with Barzal. Barzal's the chalk. Like it's pretty easy to pick Barzal if you believe in the Islanders, and that's what you should do. That makes sense. But when you're at a $60 to $80 card, the question is, can you go to, are you going from 80 to 100 or 80 to 200? Because you can get some lower price cards that go from 20 to 80. Yeah. That's, you're doing 400 or 300% there. And it's relative, but the price point is just what really kept me away.
Yeah, that's fair. I think the one interesting thing to note with Nylander or Barzal's a little higher, but like I think there's maybe like a 1% chance that those cards go any lower, and like a good chance that they go up. It's just like, as you say, does Nylander go from 50 to 200? Like my thoughts are like if Marner is 350, 300, and Nylander is 50, like why is Marner 6 times as expensive? Now, obviously, he's a character and he's amazing, and like he does things on the ice kind of similar to Barzal that are just awesome. So I'm not saying they should be the same, but I think there's a lot of room for Nylander.
Yeah, and I don't have Nylander's numbers in front of me. I can pull them up. I did look at them this afternoon, and I know that they weren't extremely impressive. I believe he had somewhere around, I thought it was, and I pull up Alex Nylander, of course.
Yeah, unfortunately he's not playoff relevant or that relevant in general.
Yeah, so he had 17 goals this year in 49 games, 41 points in 49 games. But the 17 goals for a guy like William Nylander, certainly capable of scoring. I'm guessing that would be below his pace from last year, where he had 31 goals in 68 games. But for that card to go up, he's gonna have to light that lamp.
Oh yeah.
I think it's the only way it happens. I don't think him having even if he was to put up a 3-assist night, I don't think anyone really notices. I think he's got to be the guy celebrating the puck in the back of the net off of his stick.
Yeah.
To see the card price, but. These are the things. This is why it's fun, though. These are the things I'm going to be watching and see what happens and how the card market reacts to all these different situations that are, inevitable and going to happen as we go along this 2021 playoff adventure.
Yeah. I'm just so excited to see what happens. Before we wrap here, I want to put you on the spot. Who's winning in the Stanley Cup?
The Colorado Avalanche.
Well, there's going to be one thing we agree on today, then. Because that's my pick too.
Are you really picking the Avs?
I am. Yeah. I could show you. I've got my ghetto bracket in front of you. It's got Colorado.
Who do you got Colorado lined up against? Carolina.
Yeah. I wrote Edmonton on my card, but that's just because I couldn't bring myself not to write them down. But I was doing my bracket and I was seeing Carolina versus Edmonton. I was having super PTSD from the last time Carolina played Edmonton in the playoffs, and like that year I think Carolina's team beat us and like probably shouldn't have. This year it will be a different story where Carolina probably should beat the Oilers.
Yeah, well, we'll see. It's going to be fun. I'm a little bit surprised you picked Colorado, but at the same time, I'm not. I mean, they are the favorites going in, and it was almost more fun, to be quite honest, when we were like the underdogs, and I knew how good the team was, but no one else knew how good it was. The wider market didn't know. When you go in, being a favorite, much like Tampa Bay last year. Like I said, the Cup is hard to win, so they're gonna have a shot, but they got to do it. At the end of the day, you just got to get 16 wins. That's all it boils down to. 16 more, and I hope they do it. It's been a long time, not as long as it has for you Leafs fans, but that's how she goes, and I hope it happens.
Yeah, it's an extremely difficult trophy to win. The NHL is so even that the worst team in this playoffs is maybe Nashville or Winnipeg, and like those teams could upset a couple of rounds and I wouldn't be like, oh my god, like that was unheard of. And yeah, like I just think Colorado is built so well to go deep in the playoffs, and I think honestly their toughest challenge is going to be Vegas, so like I could be wrong early, but they just have to go through Vegas at some point.
Yeah, they're going to have to beat Minnesota, then ultimately beat Vegas, or beat St. Louis and then beat Vegas. I think that's the way that it's going to go too. I'm more confident. I feel like Vegas is going to win. I don't know, man. It's my team, and it's always like, I hope it's that easy, guys, but it's never that easy. Again, that's why I say too, like, no one's talking about Minnesota here, and I don't think it's fair. They've had a good year, They're 7-1-2 in their last 10 games. I don't know, man. It's playoff time. Now it's just winning games. That's it. No complaints. There's no excuses. You just win games. And hopefully you've bought some cards to bring this full circle. Hopefully you've bought some cards of some of those players, and you can see some upside and have some fun with all of it.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And to bring it even more full circle, Kaprizov might carry the Wild. So I mean, I guess you'll get to see a lot of him, right? Assuming the series stays the same, and that guy's electrifying to watch, so that'll be a fun kind of head-to-head. But I just don't see them doing it.
Not going to get an argument out of me.
All right, man. Well, this has been awesome. I hope everyone liked our picks. If you didn't like our picks, or if you have other picks, please comment in the old comment section, or come join our Discord and tell us what you think. And thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Aaron, for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Check me out, Instagram, Lapper Flips, LAPP3R30_flips. I got a YouTube channel. Post videos weekly. I'm going to try posting a little bit more, but, I'd appreciate it if you check it out. Leave a comment. Nothing but good vibes. I have fun doing it, and I just want other people to do it. I think we talked about it last show. I just want more people making hockey content because I love watching it so much. But that's where to find me. I'm happy to, to enjoy some conversation and answer questions and debate and do all the things that are that are fun, that involve hockey and cardboard.
Yeah, I'll be definitely talking about hockey and cardboard, only hockey-related cardboard in my neck of the woods. And yeah, of course, you can find me on all the social media, YouTube. You're already here. The links are in the show notes or the social media profiles. And yeah, we'd love to see you on Discord too, because that's where we really talk about hockey cards.
Yeah, come join the Discord. Again, great guys and gals. If there's gals there, I don't know.
There are.
But great group of people. It's always awesome, so hop in.
All right, man, this has been a lot of fun. And I guess until the next show, go get those playoff young guns.